Hello, everyone. Welcome to Homemakers Radio. I hope you get a few things done while you listen. This is the purpose of these broadcasts, so that you will have something to listen to, maybe a bit of company. It's all my opinion. Don't ever follow it unless it works for you. And just keep in mind that you're going to have to do your own research and your own study, just like the Bereans. Check it out, see if it's true, if it's workable, if there's any merit in it. And welcome to the Manse. I would like to someday learn to do a home tour for you so you can see my autumn rooms. And we're not having much of an autumn. We're still in high summer, and there's no autumn colors around, but we're pretending. And so today we want to start out with your appearance. I didn't look up any extra information on how getting ready and getting dressed up and fixing up yourself helps, but I think it does if you are in a bad mood or if you wake up and you're a bit disgruntled, that it does help at least to get dressed. We do this with children, don't we? They're fussy or cranky. We say, why don't we just get a bath and get you all dressed up, and then we'll have something good to eat, and maybe read them a story or just help them along a little bit. And let's remember, with children, those of you that are around children, their minds aren't fully formed. They cannot behave like adults, and we need to be careful not to have grudges against them or have a vendetta against them and label their personality or label their character. They're still in formation, and so are we. Let's be merciful and kind. And these are some of the things I might be discussing later on when I get to the people part. And so I want to start out with this idea of getting dressed to suit the mood of the. Remember, I have been reading you this weather book, Eric Sloan weather book, and sometimes the atmosphere. And I've been reading a lot about atmosphere and how it affects your mood, or it just makes you feel out of sorts or happy or whatever, and how we need to understand this so that we can control and monitor ourselves. And the weather and the light and the way it comes in can inspire what you wear. Now, I'm a sewist. I love fabrics, and I buy them according to what they evoke in me. Like, one of them might look like the fireweed on the homestead in Alaska, and so I'll buy that fabric and wear it in the autumn, and it makes me so happy. I'll be walking. I'm on farmland now in Oregon after living in Texas for so many years, and I will be walking along there, and I will see something that will inspire me, and I'll say, I want some fabric just like that. And so for me, fabric is a mood reflector, but for you it might be something different. Maybe it's a type of tea that you're drinking, or maybe it is an activity, or it could be some music, or it could be something artistic. And so that's why getting dressed in the morning and getting yourself fixed up, and I know some of you who have been with me for a while are getting tired of hearing this, but it's always a good idea, even if you're sick. I remember being sick when I was younger, and one of the members of my family said, I think you'll feel better if you'll get a shower or a bath and get some clean clothes on it, and you will feel better. So I did. And even though I had to eventually go back to bed, it really helped in my recovery. And in the olden days, when we would take nursing courses, in those days they weren't about medicine or anything. They were about making someone who wasn't feeling well more comfortable. And it was how to change their bedding while they were still in bed, or how to quickly change their bedding when they had gotten up and temporarily, and then how to brush their hair and how to make a little tray for them. Remember the upside down box? We would take a cardboard box, and we would cut a half oval circle in it on each side so it would fit over their lap, and how to provide things that would soothe them or maybe distract them from their illness. And so it's the same thing with getting dressed. It's just a nice little distraction from the grim job ahead, as Emma would say. And today I do have a few things I'd like to talk to you about. I never feel ready. That's why it sometimes takes me 2 weeks to get back here. I never feel prepared. I never feel like I've done enough to perfect my own delivery or do my own research or prepare. So today I just thought, since I have an hour, I'm going to go ahead and just talk about whatever comes to my mind. And so now that I have the appearance out of the way, is there anything else I could say about getting ready first before you start? Even if you make your list first, write down prep for appearance, because that covers just about everything. I write down prep because I'm going to prepare myself mentally and physically. I'm going to include my exercise and my prayer, just 5-minute exercise, and that's my prep. It's all those things combined in one. And is there anything I could say that would motivate you and help you to get ready for the day? Are you glad to be here? I know when you get vital every morning that you wake up, you're so excited because I'm still here, I'm alive. And we need to have a childlike view of life the way little children do. And don't depress children with our gloom and doom attitude. Be happy to see them first thing in the morning when they wake up. And that's one benefit of homeschool, is we can spend time with our children, teaching them to love life and see good days, as the Bible says. And so they've got to do that, or they will be plagued with depression later on in life. If someone's always running you down, or someone's giving you negative replies to everything, and you can't seem to get a good conversation going, and you feel put down, don't you feel a little depressed afterwards? Well, that's not good for us. It's not good for children. And so today I want to try to give you some good news and some things that will lift you up. And so I don't know quite where to start, but since I've already covered the preparation for your day, and include on your list the 3 things that I like to include, and that is something for yourself, getting yourself ready, something for your house, your home, your homemaking, and then something for other people, and hopefully other people in your family. And so I'm going to do something about homemaking. So if you've got something to do, you can get going on that. I don't really have anything to show you here today. And you can get going or sit there or sleep, whatever. It has to be some use to you. And so I wanted to read out of Fascinating Girl. Now, a lot of people objected to Fascinating Girl, Fascinating Womanhood, but they had a lot of good things in it. And later on, I want to tell you one of the points that I learned. Now, back in the late 1960s, early 1970s, when this book was available, there was nothing like it. Now, every religious person gets a hold of it and then fine-tunes it into their own beliefs and adds their own religion to it, and develops a book on for single girls and one for married women, and then they also start copying each other and making more books. But this one came from the little books that you could get that were, I believe, secular, and it was called The Secrets of Fascinating Women, and it was just all of these. It was about 6 of them, I think, and one was about homemaking, and one was about refinement, one was about feminine dress, one was about understanding men. But I have found that the section on that was very helpful for understanding everybody. It just had good, polite, basic instructions, like don't humiliate people, don't snap back at them, avoid hasty, sharp replies. Well, that works for the family, that works for everyone. Don't drive people away by your caustic personality, and understand the different roles between men and women. And those were ancient. Those were written, I believe, back maybe almost in the 1920s. And so Mrs. Andelin took them and revised them. They were copyright free, and she could revise them into that would suit the woman today who was facing a lot of conflict in her role, whether she should be a homemaker, whether she should go out to work or whatever, and she just refined it a little bit, made it a bit more understanding. I'm going to read to you today from The Fascinating Girl. This was for girls, single girls that weren't married, and this is the course that I took when I was, I believe, 19 or 20 years old. Took me that long to find something, and I don't believe we should get all our information out of books, because some things, you've got to just leave up to God and nature. Let it just happen in some ways. But this helps give young girls good judgment, so that if something happens, whether they should take advantage of the opportunity or not, they have good judgment about it. They have some standards, and they have a kind of a mental evaluation that they can make, and to determine whether it would be good for them or not to do this or that. So this is called How to Find Happiness in the Domestic Role, and that means homemaking. So I'm going to read that to you. My little speaker is flickering, and that kind of makes me nervous. So I just wanted to check that out, make sure that that's going to work out. And so, how to find happiness in the domestic role, and this means homemaking. I have said that one of the qualities of the ability is one of the best qualities, and I would assume she's thinking character qualities. And I have discussed character with you, and I will try to do that again today. Is to find happiness in her work. With the right attitude, the control of life's activities, this can be achieved. The following suggestion are good rules to follow. Now, when I think of homemaking or domestic quality, you can go to, like I was at the airport recently, and I noticed how many food services and kiosks there were, and women there serving other people with food, cleaning the tables, working in the kitchen. And of course, that's their career, and they have to have a good attitude or they won't have any customers. And we at home sometimes take it all for granted and think we can get away with just having a bad mood and making everyone around us unhappy, when she says here, with the right attitude and control of life's activities. I'm not quite sure what that would mean. This can be achieved. So here are her suggestions. Have a proper attitude. It is best to face your work with a realistic attitude. Just as we learn to accept people as part good or part bad, this is so important. Ladies, people have the wrong attitude towards church attendance or worship attendance, because they go there and they think that everybody there should be absolute perfection, not realizing they all came out of the same world that you came out of, and sometimes they are at different stages of growth in their life and don't realize they've dragged along some bad habits with them from their culture, and we don't expect that. And also, we have to learn that some people have different values, have been raised, didn't have the same opportunities we have had, and we're not tolerant. Now, I understand you wouldn't want to attend a church where there are some very bad influences of people who have come in that might be bad for your children. I understand that at all. But I like what she said when she said, it's best to face your work with a realistic attitude. Just as we learn to accept people as part good and part bad, well, life is part good, part bad. And even when you read the accounts in the Old Testament of David and his sons, and how some of them were obedient and some were unruly, this is part good and part bad. And we read about right away in the Old Testament about people who were cruel and people who were kind, and we try to see the contrast there. So it is best to face your work with a realistic attitude. Just as we learn to accept people as part good and part bad, our work consists of some jobs that can't be enjoyable and some that may be just plain drudgery. Well, I in the 1980s, when Home Interiors came out, I went to one of their presentations or parties or whatever, where they were selling their home decorating products. It was just consisted of pictures you hang on the wall and candle sconces and just various things to brighten the home. And they'd always have the presenter would always have some little hint in the beginning. And of course, they sold scented candles and votives, and they would say, as you and many people in those days didn't have dishwashers yet, so they would say, light one of these votives, put them on your windowsill, and or put some music on while you wash the dishes. They made light. What was it called? It was an old-fashioned saying, make hard work light or make it fast. And just as we learned, so our work consists of some enjoyable jobs and some drudgery jobs. We can't expect a job as varied as homemaking to be all pleasant. But if you will look around you, you will find that every occupation has its boring, monotonous tasks, and it's best to face them for what they are, a necessary responsibility. You think of people who have spent years and years in the drudgery of a factory job or a type of job that was just had so much sameness to it, how relieved they are when they come home to be homemakers, because it's so much more varied. It is a little bit of everything, and you get to do it all. Or you get to assign others to do it, but you must you're monitoring it. Now, first of all, I want to say that not everybody is going to be the same. Some people will have different priorities. You may walk into your house and think, well, she could probably do your house, and you look at yourself and say, she could probably do better. But remember that the priorities are the people that are in it, making your children and your family safe, happy, making sure that it's healthy, a healthy environment, and also reflects the creation, I guess, and reflects happiness. And we learn as we go. We make mistakes. We fall into very bad attitudes, but we can forgive ourselves and come out of it and teach against it. I was talking to one lady the other day who was telling me that one of her children had really disappointed him, got caught up in the wrong crowd or something, and she said that one of the ways that she overcame it was she decided to teach other children. She says, I may have lost one of mine, but I'm not going to let other people's children get lost. So when she got a chance, she offered to counsel them or talk to them about staying with God and with the home. And so that's how we overcome it, okay? You might have spent part of your life with maybe a haphazard attempt at homemaking or housekeeping, but you can recover and you can do better and make up for lost time. It may insult an intelligent woman to tell her she must find her joy in washing diapers and scrubbing floors. You can tell how long ago that was written, can't you? Because since the scrubbing floor and the diapers has come along, disposables and even disposable mops, but I last saw someone on the floor on their knees scrubbing the floor when I was about 6 years old, and after that came the mops with the handles. You didn't have to do that. She must remember that her happiness does not come from a mere segment of homemaking. It comes from the overall accomplishment. Many of our duties, so for instance, if you're going to train or teach a young daughter or son about cleaning something, let's say the oven or the kitchen floor or kitchen drawer, you say this is just a start of something that's going to make everything look good on top as well, and because it gives you a semblance of order, and it's going to add to the overall beauty of it all. So it's not just I'm trying to get you to clean a drawer. I'm trying to get you to see that we can make every little corner and nook and cranny beautiful. And it adds to the overall effect and feeling of an orderly home. Many of our duties, however, are a source of real enjoyment. Caring for our children, cooking delicious meals, and cleaning the house can be a happy experience. There are women who delight in scrubbing floors and walls. We don't really do that anymore. I remember we used to have to wash the walls. We don't have to anymore. I don't know what that was all about. Washing and ironing and cleaning closets. Little of our work is unpleasant, but if it seems so to you, it is best to face it with honest attitude, realizing that the world's work consists of certain amounts of drudgery. Everything, even if you, I noticed when I was taking a painting class online that even there was a certain amount of that was hard work and drudgery, and you had to do quite a bit of that, getting your materials out, preparing it all out, getting it all organized, getting all the sketches done and everything. That was work, but when it came to the painting and the color, well, there was the pleasure in it. Little of our work is unpleasant, but if it seems so to you, it is best to face it with an honest attitude, realizing that the world's work consists of a certain amount of drudgery. I'm reading from The Fascinating Girl. Don't be crowded for time. So number 1 was have a proper attitude. Number 2 was don't be crowded for time. How interesting this is, because when you are doing stress cleaning and you become tense, rather out of breath, it's all intensified, the pleasure is gone. But when you slowly do things, there's just so much more meaning. It's almost like a gratefulness to God for what you have. If you want to enjoy homemaking, allow yourself enough time to enjoy it. She has emphasized time, rather than to hurry through a job just to get it over with. You know, when you're growing up, sometimes you're taught wrong about work, and even in school, the idea is just get it over with, complete the assignment on time. But it says here, rather than to hurry through a job just to get over with it and out of the way. It is almost, now that can be taken wrong. And when I was in the class, the teacher had to counsel several of the younger students to understand this, where they would say, well, they'd be absolutely too slow, because the teacher taught us not to hurry just to get it over with and out of the way. You have to take everything in consideration and in balance. That's not what she meant. But some people are looking for a way out all the time. So they'll slowly do a job, never get it complete, maybe never even start, because they don't want to hurry through and just to get it out of the way. Now, let me qualify that with something that I observed recently. Was someone said, I don't care what I wear for the home because nobody has to admire me. That to me is one of those, remember that book about, I've forgotten what it was called. It was called, things like how you distract someone with something you're saying in order to get away from the subject or something like that. She said, I don't want to bother with what I wear in the home because I don't care if anyone admires me. That is not the point. The point is to have enough dignity and respect for other people and for your home and for your job that it's worth dressing up for, that it's worth wearing something nice or preparing yourself, bathing and dressing, and that you have enough respect for life that you do that, and probably much more is involved in it. And never have I said, or any book that talks about Christian women, modesty, clothing, and stuff ever talks about how if you do this, people will admire you. Sometimes people give us a distraction or a distracting statement that has nothing to do with the reasons. And so you can't say, I'm just going to work slowly, even though dinner time is coming on and I've got to make dinner, because I don't want to hurry through a job and just get it out of the way. You've got to read everything and consider everything. And I'm speaking to some of the younger girls at home and boys at home. This is what she said. If you want to enjoy homemaking, you can substitute the word work. Allow yourself enough time to enjoy it rather than to hurry through the job just to get over with it and out of the way. The way you allow yourself enough time is to get up at a reasonable hour after you've had enough rest and get fully dressed and have a little list of things that you must do. And don't put it off and don't get distracted in other things and give yourself some time. Now that just takes experience and it's hard to explain it and get it down to a fine list. It is almost impossible to enjoy a job because she's talking about enjoying work. It's almost impossible to enjoy a job if you are rushed. You know, if you try to rush children, hurry up, get that cleaned up and put that away, they don't enjoy it and they make a lot of mistakes. And when you rush through things, you can have accidents and then have to do things all over again. And even though you are unmarried right now, you are always faced with a certain amount of housework. Well, this is true, and it's sad that sometimes there'll be a girl who is of marriageable age. She wants to get married, but she's not paying any attention to the things of her own home that could be very helpful to her mother and to herself to give her the skills and the practice that she needs. We can learn from this book too, even though we're vital. You probably have your laundry to do. Now, this is something you can do at home. You girls who are at home, you young girls, and you can listen to this even if you're 8 years old, from 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. This is good advice. You probably have your own laundry to do, your room to clean, your closet and drawers to keep straight, mending, sewing, ironing, and probably at least some cooking. Well, if you're not doing any cooking, you need to know how to put a sandwich together. You need to know how to slice up raw fruits and vegetables. You need to know how to prepare natural foods. It is best to control your time and learn how to enjoy these tasks while you are young. Now, so if you are wanting your children to learn this, then you go into their rooms with them and you work alongside of them, and then then you stand back and let them do it, and they will catch on. I don't think it's very wise ever for a parent to just sit in a chair in front of the television and bark out orders at the kids like, go get your room cleaned up or whatever. I don't think that's ever wise. I know that it's probably will happen sometimes when you're not feeling well or a little weak, but I think that work needs to be approached with love, and you need to ask them and be pleasant about it. Otherwise, there are a lot of adults today that grew up with a bad attitude about work because of the way they were taught. So we can make it a happy time. It says there are many things that you might be doing that are of questionable value, and some are a complete waste of time. I don't know if she's mentioned some of these, but some of it is games. I never really liked games all that much because I was creative and I would have rather sewn something, and I thought, or crafted something, and I thought that the time spent in playing games, board games, card games, whatever, could have been better spent doing something that relaxed me just as much, that gave me just as much inspiration. I don't find much inspiration in games, but she didn't mention them here. Some games are very educational and good, but basically growing up with people who sat in those long winter days, there were a lot of games to play, and I never enjoyed them because I wanted to do something else. But that's up to you. These are just my opinions. It says, some things are a complete waste of time. Belonging to organizations and outside activities may not be worth the time involved. Could you have spent that time in something in the home that that would benefit the home more? And I have discovered this because being a preacher's wife, there's always so many opportunities to go do social things in the church, and I realize that is one reason so many of us get so far behind and our houses get neglected when and some of it is not absolutely necessary. It's good for the people that need it, but not all of us need it. Not all of us have to be constantly entertained or encouraged. And I have even limited my hospitality. I've changed the whole strategy, and it's a one-on-one, because after years and years of doing large classes and large tea parties and things like that, a lady invited me over a couple of weeks ago, and she texted me and asked me, could I just come and see her little apartment? And she was elderly, and I said, well, I'd love to come. And she named a date and gave me directions, and I went over there. And her house, you would not have known it was an apartment. She had turned it into a Victorian dream house, very spacious. She made it look very spacious, and she had her mother's and grandmother's things, and she had everything was pristinely clean and beautiful. There was no clutter, and she had some of the old furniture that was Victorian style, and she had some modern furniture too, but you would not have known it was an apartment because she had done it up so beautifully. And she said that she wanted to make her dwelling place a blessing to other people and a type of ministry. So she decided to invite me over, and she gave me a glass of cold tea, and she said, I just want to invite one person at a time, because she said I couldn't do a tea party because I would be very worried about all that stuff and be busy with it and not really get to visit. So she said, this way I'll invite one person and I will get to know them. And so she offered me some cold tea, and she told me her life story, and she also talked to me and asked me questions, and it was so interesting. And she said it began when someone who lived in a holiday trailer had invited her over just for a cup of tea and to talk and to get to know her. And she said she was so touched because she had grown up in societies where things were done in a big way, lots of teas and lots of Bible studies and things like that. And she said just sitting with that one woman was so refreshing to me. So she decided that's what she wanted to do. And when I got home, I told her, well, your ministry worked because I feel completely refreshed, and I was just absolutely delighted to have you all to myself. And you and I were just talking, and there weren't other conversations going on around us, and we could say things that you wouldn't say around everybody else, just directly to each other, that might not suit other people in a group. So I have changed it, and now I entertain one family or one person if they want to come out, and it's a lot less stuff to prepare too, and it might suit some people. So then she says, belonging to organizations and outside activities may not be worth the time involved. You can do most of the things that you do in organizations at home, and you can do it through the internet and through other people. You can do most of that. You don't have to go now to these groups, and I never really thought you had to. A lot of things could have been done by correspondence, and like I said, when there were these parties going around, like even Home Interiors, I would often ask for the catalog, and then I would contact the person and tell them what I wanted, although I did enjoy the demonstrations. But because I had children and a family, I didn't want to spend any evenings out. And so a lot of things that we do outside there socially could be done at home. So this will help you to decide. Time spent talking on the telephone, browsing through magazines, watching TV, or even extensive sewing can be a waste of time if done to excess. If these things rob a young girl of time to keep her things clean and organized, they should be questioned for their value in her life. Yes, and those of us who are sewists notice that when we got to sewing something, the whole house would fall apart around us because we didn't get up often enough to go and straighten something out or clean up after a meal. And so these things have to be done in balance. It will be a challenge, however, to have enough self-discipline to keep outside activities and demands at a minimum. You will have to develop a keen sense of putting first things first and giving cleanliness and orderliness some priority. You know, people used to run down other people if they seemed particular, if they wanted to put things away, and they weren't in a rush, and they wanted to be careful how they picked out something to wear, or they had a notebook and they were keeping fastidious record of everything. People used to mock them and say, there's more important things in life to do than that, and want them to focus on something intellectual, or get deep into a conversation, a deep conversation. And in relation to that, I'm going to read you a quote here by someone named Tesla. Now, I'm not sure about this man Tesla. I'm not recommending anything like that, but I'm just saying there was this quote that was attributed to him, and let's see if I can find it. It's right here, and it says here, regarding this idea that women have to be pushed into doing, quote, intellectual things. I think everything in the home it does take brains. It is intellectual. Great volumes of book could be written on it because it's so vast and it's so varied. It's not confined and unvaried. The scientists of today think deeply instead of clearly. What a concept to think about. I'll have to think about that all day. We were always encouraged, in schools to think, be deep thinkers, but never did we question it and think clearly. One must be sane to think clearly, but one can think deeply and be quite insane. And that was by Nikola Tesla. And I was just amused by that. And I might stick that on the post on which I have placed this video. Please go and click on the link in the description box underneath the channel, the video, and go to my main blog, and there you will see this video and also see the rest of it. So I thought that was so amusing. Okay, so number 3 is go the second mile. So she had number 1, how to find happiness in housekeeping. Number 1, have a proper attitude. Number 2, don't become crowded for time. Now, in the other book, The Fascinating Womanhood, under don't become crowded for time, she had written about how you watch children play with their little kitchen set or their little playhouse, and they will fold the little blankets for their dolls and carefully put them back, and they will stack up all the little play dishes and put them away, and then they'll take them out and use them, and then they'll start all over again. And they're not in any hurry, and they're enjoying it, and that was a concept that we needed to have. And of course it is. Not to feel pressured and rushed all the time. And if you do feel pressured and rushed, then cut down on the way you do things. Make it easy to clean up. Things like one-pan cooking, or when you're preparing things, use the same mixing dish for everything if you can get away with it, and if it doesn't alter the flavor that much. And don't get out new measuring cups and new spoons and throw, just pile up stuff. And we have running water, we can rinse things off and reuse them. And so don't get overwhelmed. Don't make work for yourself. So the first one was have a proper attitude. Number 2, don't become crowded for time. And number 3 is go the second mile. This is an interesting concept, and she tries to explain it here, and it just meant go beyond what is required. And she quotes Jesus and how what you do is, when the Roman soldier demanded that the ordinary citizen who was just on his way home from work or on the way to the market go, legally he could go 1 mile with him and carry something for him out of his way, only 1 mile. And but Jesus said, go the second mile. And there was a reason for it, and I'll read this to you. Go the second mile. The third part of learning to enjoy homemaking is to do jobs well. If you will find joy in your tasks, do them well. This means go beyond the call of duty and do more than is required. When you're learning to clean the kitchen or wash dishes, and you're working at the kitchen sink and everything is finished, you take a dry cloth or paper towel and you wipe the faucets and you wipe the water drops all around it and you clean it up. And there's no point in your mother sending you to the bathroom to wash the bathroom sink and you saying, I wash the sink, and then everything's a mess all around it. It's the refining that you do. It's the wiping down and the making everything look polished. So this means go beyond the call of duty and do more than is required. That's why I always said add a finishing touch. Just go beyond. And it also mentioned the finishing touch that I mentioned last time was adding something that kind of indicated the job was done. It was the like the icing on the cake or the cake topper. It was just adding I like to go outside and bring in a little branch that has little of juniper or something and lay it across a windowsill or something like that. I just do little things like that. Or, draping a pretty blanket across a chair or something like that. That's a finishing touch, and it just indicates that room is finished or the job is done. Do not just do the bare stint of a requirement, just enough to get by, for there is no special merit in this, nor is there any real enjoyment. The real joy comes in going the second mile and doing a grade A job. This doctrine was taught hundreds of years ago by Jesus when he said, If any man compel thee to go 1 mile, go with him twain. Going the second mile lifts the burden out of the work and makes it seem easy and enjoyable. Jesus also said, My work is easy and my burden is light, which only further emphasizes that if we go the second mile, our work will seem easier and more enjoyable. So I think that thinking of keeping Christ in mind helps too. I'm going to do this, go the second mile, I'm going to do it extra well at this job because of Christ, because there's so much more involved, and puts a feeling into it that's deeply devoted and religious. In reviewing the method, remember these are 3 requirements. So here it is. Do your tasks well, add some finishing touches, and be happy in your role. We have also learned just how to enjoy homemaking so that we will be happy. We have learned that we should have a proper attitude about our work. And I think some things shouldn't be labeled work. I think some things should be labeled providing comfort or providing beauty. I don't think everything should be labeled work. And I don't think work should be a bad word, but unfortunately some people have created work in, I would say, the commercial workplace that just makes people dull and miserable. There has to be a better way. We have learned that we should have a proper attitude about our work to face it realistically for just what it is, part enjoyment and part drudgery. I've heard that in order to get enjoyment out of your work or your home preparation, it's 99% effort and 1% enjoyment. It means allow enough time to enjoy it and allowing ourselves not to be crowded for time or eliminating non-essentials that waste our time. And last, we have learned that if we are to enjoy our homemaking, we'll have to go the second mile. So, if you will give thought to this subject and apply reasonable effort, even though your social life and education seem more important, you will form habits that will be valuable to you later on when you are married. You are on your way to becoming a good homemaker. Now, one of the problems with education especially higher education, well, even public school education, even private school education, is the hurrying and not paying attention to the detail of the appearance of the area that you're sitting in or living in. And a lot of college students are so dreadfully hurried that they don't clean up or live in a nice environment. And then they learn to live sloppily, to dress sloppily, not to bathe, everything, because everything is focused on that class they're taking and the intense studying that they're going to have to do. Just the whole program has nothing to do with preparation or getting ready the way I have taught you in these homeschool classes. Is one of the things that homeschooling affords us is time to get up and help the children learn to enjoy washing their hands, washing their face, and just feeling the water, running the water, combing their hair, looking in the mirror, getting dressed. Those things are pushed out of the way and become rushed by the time they're teenagers. And this is a shame because their minds are, it speeds up their minds and they can't catch up to what they're doing because they don't have time to stop and think about every step that they take. So here is the most part, here's the cream, as Emma would say. You may never have, it's called a matter of character. You may never have thought of this before, but good homemaking is a matter of character since it requires thoughtfulness, unselfishness, she's listing character qualities here, consideration of others' feelings, organization, diligence, that's a great word to study in homeschool, understanding, patience, another great word, kindness, forgiveness, and almost every virtue in existence. A woman has a most wonderful opportunity right in her own home to develop her character by being a wonderful homemaker. On the other hand, poor homemaking displays a serious weakness in character. Now, I did read this once or printed it once many years ago in a newsletter, and I just printed it and told where it came from, and it made some people very angry because they had begun to go to work outside the home and they had no time to do good housekeeping. And so to read that it was a matter, this woman thought it was a matter of bad character. For some people, it's not a matter of bad character, it's a matter of time, and they're not able to take time, or it just depends. The woman who neglects the care, on the other hand, poor homemaking displays a serious weakness in character. The woman who neglects the care of her family and housekeeping is usually self-centered and inconsiderate of the needs and feelings of others. Now, I assume she's talking about the woman that is a homemaker, a full-time homemaker. Now, that also does not include women who just don't have chronic illness or don't feel well or have some kind of disability. She may selfishly spend her time in her own pursuits, pleasures, and comforts, talking on the phone, browsing through shops, or just being casual rather than making things for her family more comfortable. The poor homemaker also lacks organization, which is a serious fault. Well, back in the 50s, it was looked down on to have a dirty house or, unclean and just messy, unsanitary. It was looked down on. Now it's so common, no one ever thinks of it. It says the poor homemaker lacks organization, which is a serious fault. Now, many people were not taught how to organize, and that's why a lot of these programs came out on television in the last decade about how to organize. And we didn't have much to organize back in the olden days. We didn't have much to put away. But now when you buy things, they come in packages of 12, and you get so much of that after a while, you almost have to have some kind of organization. God, who is our pattern of perfection, sets before us the work of his creations, a work that is a masterpiece of organization and system. I've been reading a lot more about natural systems, and so that word system. Our lack of order, then, is lacking in character. Also, the poor homemaker lacks knowledge. Well, see, I think that's what it mostly is a lack of knowledge. If she continues to fail without a diligent effort to gain knowledge of this important responsibility, the psalm says, happy is the man that gains wisdom and knowledge. So knowledge of good things, knowledge of things, of how to do things, is very helpful. If she continues to fail without a diligent effort to gain knowledge of this important responsibility, she demonstrates the weakness of character. For we have been taught, if we lack wisdom, ask of God, and he gives to all men liberally. This instruction is from the Bible. There is no excuse for a woman's lack of knowledge in her domestic world. If she doesn't know how, she can learn, and has a right to ask her Heavenly Father for help. The role of the homemaker is a spiritual qualification. This is why it is on the angelic side of the ideal woman. And when I say angelic side, she had a drawing of a figure and had it divided in half. And one was angelic, meaning more spiritual. And I think a lot of people thought she was promoting something really strange, but I don't think that was what it was. We didn't understand it that way anyway when we were younger. So I'm going to read just a little bit more, and then I'm going to have to say goodbye, and we will do the rest of what I had planned later. So, if you recall, I had talked about character in this, and so that is mainly the people part in this. And I ran across in the workbook, the Fascinating Girl workbook, a section in here. I liked her drawings and her thoughtfulness in the pages on it's mostly self-examination, but it was talking about conversation, and I had found something about Jane Austen and conversation and what they thought was important for conversation and what they used it for, and what a tool it was for them for certain things, how it guided the way they lived conversation. And she had a section here about some don'ts to remember in conversation. Now, I don't know if she had some do's here, so I'll just look back here and check it out. So I'll just do the don'ts. And I followed this the other day and found out what my weaknesses were. It was some don'ts to remember in conversation. Don't use sarcasm. Don't embarrass anyone. Don't hurt anyone. Don't belittle anyone. Don't brag. Don't talk about yourself too much. Don't overuse the word I. Don't interrupt. When someone else is talking, don't swing the conversation to focus on you. Don't pry into people's private affairs. When someone has told an exciting incident, don't try to tell a better one, thus deflating the other person's story. Don't use slang expressions, don't use coarse language, and don't tell vulgar stories, and don't use profanity. Well, I was thinking about this one here. Don't talk about yourself too much. And I normally don't go into any conversation intending to do that, but somebody will say, oh, I've never seen that dress on you before. Where did you get that? And I'll start telling the story of where the fabric came from, and then after I read this, I caught myself. And I said, now wait a minute. They don't need to know what catalog I ordered this fabric from, and how I didn't like it when it first came, and how I tried to give it away and no one wanted it. And so I thought, when someone asks a question, be careful, because you can get carried away with the answer. Try to make your answers like Jesus said, yes or no. And you can do it softly. Yes, I haven't worn this very much. Thank you for noticing, or something like that, and leave it at that. They don't need to know the history of everything, and that can eliminate the time you spend talking about your own activities. So that goes along with some of the character of this, and now I'm going to read, this is, I guess, the people part, but the whole thing has been kind of people part today, so I was talking about greetings and gestures in Austen's novels by Rachel Dodge. And so in Jane Austen's novels, a person's social behavior is the external manifestation of his moral behavior. Now, I found that sentence quite deep, but I want to think about it clearly. A person's social behavior, the way they talk, the way they introduce themselves, was considered the external manifestation. In other words, it came from their heart, from their moral behavior. Like Jesus said, whatever comes out of a man's mouth is what's in his heart. Austen utilizes greetings such as formal introductions, handshakes. In other words, I'll just want to go back to this. In other words, in this people part that I'm doing for you here, remember that what you say, if it's continually on the negative side, or if it continually goes to things that we shouldn't be talking about, the Bible talks about things that shouldn't be talked about, and if you continually talk about things like it's always conversations you have with people kind of trigger your mind to something that's dreary or depressing, then you have to realize that your heart and your character have to be redone. And you do that by catching yourself and going into something positive each time. That's how we take away negative thoughts too, is we catch them and then we substitute a good thought. Austen utilizes greetings such as formal introductions, handshakes, curtsies, and bows, and even the famous cut in order to help her plots. So, ladies, I will continue later with this. I do have to go now, and I love you. Thank you for all you do for me, and I appreciate your comments, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.